Hello, something of an impromptu video. This is a Blue Snowball microphone that belongs to a friend who is a couple of hours ago just passed this to me. He was using this recently and it started to glitch out on him. And he got in touch and asked if I could have a look at it and if it might be an issue with something as the USB connection or something like that. We took it to my studio and we did a brief test on it, and one thing I did notice is that this 3-position gain setting switch on the back, which is the opposite way around to what I would expect. In the second position, which is where it was when he handed it to me, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of kind of loud static on that setting, which doesn't seem to correlate to what's actually coming into the mic, which suggests to me that this switch may be dirty. It was a very sort of analog noise, as in I don't think it's got any particular issue with the USB port, for example. It didn't seem to be losing any kind of connection or any kind of digital issue. It sounded more like a kind of analog issue, which, as I say, makes me think that this is probably down to the gain switch. So this might be a really quick, really simple fix, but these are very popular mics and I thought it might be useful if I can kind of demonstrate and if I can highlight any kind of issue on this and how to fix it. It might be useful to someone else. So I've connected this up to my MacBook and I'm going to go into the settings on here and just change the input to use this mic. So if I were to switch this to setting 2, hopefully you can see on there, if I tap that, it seems to roughly correlate with what we should see. But if I set it to position 1, you see all this kind of random spikes of noise that don't really correlate to what it should be picking up. They seem a little bit random. And if we play this back, yeah, it sounds like a bad cable, that kind of thing. So I think we've got an issue on the kind of analog front end of this with this gain switch. I'm going to open this up. So I've got a screwdriver here and see if we can go in this and give it a clean and see if we can improve that issue, because it's likely the cause of what he was describing when he was trying to use it last night. I will also check solder joints and that sort of thing. The USB cable seems to fit okay. It doesn't seem to wiggle around too much. It definitely doesn't feel like there's a loose connection, for example, on the USB port. That feels fine, but we'll have a look at this and see. So there are 4 screws on the back, 4 recessed screws. So we've got this mount here that should just slide out. That's used with the little stand that I've detached already. So let's see if I can get this into 2 parts. Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of adhesive on the outer part there. Okay, so what I'm seeing is a IDC connector down here that comes from the, I think it comes from the switch actually. Yes, that comes from the switch there. There we go, so that's got that into 2 parts. So we have an IDC connector there that goes to the switch, and the screws are coming out. Let's take those out. And we have a cable here that comes from the USB port and goes to a connector here, which has got a tie wrap around it. That's kind of curious. I'm not sure what that's for. Maybe it's just to keep the cable from flopping around and knocking around, perhaps. And on the front, are we able to remove, what's that that's just rolled out? There's a little rubber suspension mount there. I think that goes around this metal piece at the front, so there seems to be a big metal piece. And in the top we've got the LED, I guess the power and status LED, that goes through a hole in the board, and one wire of that appears to be soldered to the USB connection. No, it isn't actually, it's soldered to this metal plate. So there's a screw there. So where did they go? They go into a connector here. So we've a little DuPont connector there that hopefully will allow us to remove the front. They don't leave a lot of room. There we go. So that separates the two halves. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this sort of trim strip around the outside there is sort of glued on. I can separate the front. So that's the connector from the front LED. It goes through this little hole in the board, and in the back this is the USB ports. This is the back of this, and then down here we can see the 3-position switch. Now, so there are 2 mic elements in this. That's interesting. There seems to be 2 electric mics in the front of this, and then there's this piece of sort of foam around the outside, and then this metal sort of shield, I guess, which I guess adds most of the weight to the thing, and then the main circuit board. And we've got a little chip there in the middle that I guess will be the USB interface chip. These don't have any kind of output. It's a USB mic, but they don't have any kind of headphone output or anything like that directly. They're just a standard sort of USB mic. There's a black wire here that goes down to a terminal on the switch, so that's probably some sort of ground wire, which seems okay. That's connected next to this little capacitor here, which is marked C23, so there's a little point there. And then, yeah, there's the connectors to that switch. So the question is, how can I get to that switch? How is it fixed in to try and get some cleaner in there? Now, annoyingly, there seem to be little plastic studs in there that hold the switch in place, but I think they're possibly just melted over from the back panel. I'm not sure that they actually come out. So where there would be sort of not even screw holes really, I think they just overlap the switch ever so slightly in order to hold it in. So one seems to be over the top of the foam, and another is in the back. I can just see an identical one on the other side. So this little white sort of plug there, it doesn't feel like it's willing to come out. The switch is probably kind of heat staked in a way into place, and it's probably fitted in there permanently. So I can see a little slot on the side of the switch that might allow us to get some contact cleaner in there. I think it's the only shot we've got, so I'm just going to attempt to sort of douse this in deoxit and see if we can get anything to go into there. Okay, a little bit of time has passed, a bit of a lash up here. I've just had to shove this duster underneath this metal plate just to stop it shorting against this circuit board. The best I could do was basically to drown that switch from every angle I could get to in deoxit, which I keep in this little needle bottle, which by the way is terrible. Not the solution, but this actual bottle. I bought a batch of these in the hope that they'd be useful in or more useful than the spray in kind of dispensing this stuff, and it actually turned out that they leak. When they pull air in through the needle, they just spit the solution out. I tried to put a little pinhole in the top of the bottle here opposite the label to try and give it a kind of air hole, and it tends to just leak solution out of that. You can see it's leaking everywhere. The cans of this are crap. The nozzle on this is crap. It just leaks everywhere. It's not like this stuff is cheap. This stuff is like probably, you know, pound for pound, it's probably about the price of blood. Yeah, I just managed to sort of drown this switch from every angle as much as I can, leave it a little while. I always find if I apply this to whatever I'm trying to apply it to and then leave it for a bit, it has more effect than just dousing it once and immediately expecting it to work, which I think most people do with the spray. They'll hit it once and think, oh yeah, that's fixed it. I find it likes to kind of wick its way in, and then if you leave it for a little while, it seems to, in my experience, take the most effect and be the most effective. So anyone who knows about these are probably screaming at the screen earlier in the video as to what this 1, 2 and 3 are. It helps if you read the manual. I've had a little look at the manual. Position 1, and the reason it's got 2 separate electric pickups here. Position 1 is a cardioid pickup. Position 2 is the cardioid with a 10 dB pad, so you can use that to record directional sounds which are a bit louder than the traditional cardioid position. Position 3 is the other element, so it's an omnidirectional pickup, so you can use that to record things like conferences or things where you may not want the mic to be directional, but you may want it to pick up sound all around. So after exercising that switch quite a bit, and as I said, dousing it with as much deoxit as I think it could take, it seems to be fine. I'm certainly getting, as I said, no digital dropouts, no issues. I noticed that in position 3, it may just be a characteristic of this, it may just be that it's in pieces. There seems to be a very low frequency noise on there, and in position 1, in the cardioid position, that doesn't seem to happen. Now, cardioid pickups do have naturally a what we call a proximity effect, which is where the closer you, for example, if you're using them to record speech or a voice, if you get close to them, physically close to them, they do pick up more bass. Omnidirectional capsules and polarities tend to be not so much affected by that. They don't have so much of that proximity effect. They have a more kind of flat effect. So whether it's something to do with that, I mean, I've just tried this just by leaving this on, kind of just the ambient sound, but I'm not seeing those spikes anymore that I was seeing that suggested perhaps this switch was making intermittent contact. So I think I've not seen anything else. I've certainly not seen any bad soldering, bad connections on the connectors or anything. As we've seen, the connectors are tie wrapped down, I guess, to just strengthen the cables so that they don't rattle around. Certainly I've not seen that before, but I think I'm going to put this back together again, just leave it for a little while just for this to settle down, and then try it again and see if we've permanently fixed that problem. When reassembling these, do your best to make sure these little sort of, I think they're silicone rubber, these little suspension parts here stay in place, because as I'm finding out, they like to come out and roll around and yeah, go astray. So just try and make sure that when you reassemble this, you do manage to get them in place and realigned, and that they don't wander off and you miss one out. And which bit did I forget? The mount. So we'll undo it, we'll do it again. Okay, we're back together. USB is in, the light is on, the LED connector is of course reconnected. I'm currently in position 1. I'm going to roll this and just see what it picks up and if we get those spikes again. So far I don't think so. It seems to be tracking my speech properly and doesn't seem to be exhibiting that problem that it had where we were getting random analog spikes on there. I'm going to switch to position 3. Now you will get a pop when you switch the pickups, but again, just going to see if that is picking up correctly. So as we said earlier, position 1 is the cardioid pickup, position 3 is the omnidirectional pickup, position 2 is the cardioid pickup with a 10 dB pad. So if you're recording loud sources like a live band or anything like that, then you should see a 10 dB difference between position 1 and position 2, and indeed we seem to do that, but I'm not seeing that horrible spike, except for when I change the switch position itself. I'm not seeing that horrible spike that we were seeing before, so hopefully that's sorted it out. Let's just stop that and give a playback. Spike, except for when I change the switch position itself. I'm not seeing that horrible spike that we were seeing before, so hopefully that's sorted it out. That seems to be alright to me. So that's probably fixed it. I don't seem to see any other issue with this. As I said, certainly didn't spot any soldering issues or anything like that. The USB connection seems fine, the cable seems fine. Maybe that's of use to someone who's got one of these and is getting a similar symptom where you're getting random spikes and noise and mess in the audio. Clean that switch. If you've got some deoxit or switch cleaner, even if you've got spray, unfortunately you can't kind of remove that switch. It seems to be fixed in place permanently as part of the plastic molding, but that switch, if it gets mucky, does seem to cause intermittent audio issues and spikes in the audio. So give that a clean and it seems to sort it out. There's not really, I don't think, much else to go wrong with these, unless you get any kind of moisture in the capsules or anything like that, which I don't think has been the case here. It now seems to be fine. So if anyone's got one of these and you've got that problem, now you know what to do. Clean that switch. So I hope that's been of some use and some entertainment. Thank you very much for watching.